Hello, everyone. Thank you for investing your time with us today. My name is Dr. Nilesh Kumar Dubey. I'm a moderator for this panel discussion. Today, we have an amazing panel on title Understanding the World Outside Academia, and we will talk about why alternative careers after PhD are no longer considered a plan B, but rather a viable, rewarding, and a meaningful alternatives to traditional academic position. These non-academic careers provide the opportunity to put our rich graduate training to a good use. This is an important topic that is affecting many graduate and PhD holders. So we are honored to create this panel discussion to share what we know about the world outside academia, give you some points and uh, give you some tools and talking points to plan your career outside academia. In terms of procedure, we're going to have 45 to 50 minutes of talk and 5 to 10 minutes of question answer session from the viewers. So without further delay, let's get started with the panel introduction. So today we have Dr. Aishwarya Bhargav from India. She's a co-founder and CTO for a Peachtum Private Limited. Hi, Aishwarya.
Hello.
The second panelist for the talk, we have Dr. Alif. She's a patent scientist at a firm in the United States. Hi, Dr. Alif.
Hi, Kyle.
So the third panelist for the discussion we have is Ivan. He's an ex-general education officer from Ministry of Singapore, and currently he's doing a teaching and PhD from National University of Singapore. Hi, Ivan.
Hi.
Hi, guys. So I think we are live now. So I know all about you guys, but our viewers, they might not know. So I will really appreciate if you can guys start with a brief introduction about yourself. Maybe we can start with Aishwarya.
Hi, I'm Aishwarya Bhargav. I am the CTO of Peachterm Healthcare, a biomedical devices company which is based in Bengaluru, Karnataka, which is in India. Before this, I was a part of Entrepreneur First. Entrepreneur First is a talent accelerator program where they take you into the program and help you build a startup. And that is where I started this company. And I did two cohorts, one in Singapore and one in Bengaluru with Entrepreneur First itself. And before that, I did my PhD in mechanical engineering from the National University of Singapore.
Thank you for the introduction, Dr. Maybe Dr. Alif.
First of all, thank you, Nilesh, for the invitation. I am working as a patent scientist right now at a law firm located at Cambridge, Boston, US. And I'm assisting early stage biotechnology companies focusing on cancer and reconstructive therapies in order to manage their and protect and improve their intellectual property portfolio. Before working as a patent scientist, I obtained my PhD in material science from Switzerland in Europe. And during my research career, I have led numerous projects having successful outcomes that lies at the intersection of chemistry, material science, and life sciences.
Ivan?
Hi. I'm actually currently a tutor. Previously, as what Dr. Nilesh has mentioned, I was a general education officer, basically a high school teacher in Singapore under the Ministry of Education. And prior to that, I actually did my undergrad in National University of Singapore. And during my teaching stint, I actually did a couple of masters, basically. And one of it is actually a Masters of Education to further my teaching career. And after the end of my teaching stint in the Ministry of Education, I went on to pursue my PhD in mechanobiology at the National University of Singapore.
Hi. Oh, thank you very much for the introduction, guys. So let's get right into with our first question. First question. So it's a very straight question. We really want to know, what motivated you to pursue your career outside academia, and what have been the most interesting moments on the path that led you where you are now. So maybe we can start with Dr. Alif.
Sure. First of all, I want to say I really like research and I have enjoyed like every bit of bench work. However, in academia, you are mostly evaluated depending on the experimental results you obtain. If the results are not panned out, your skills, abilities, and diligence are not valued much. This is my observation. This is why I wanted to pursue a career path where my success will be evaluated based on my diligence. Also, regarding choice of the intellectual property, during my PhD, I had the chance to be part of industrial academia collaboration, and I saw that how hard in the industry people were trying to protect their technology, and this made me realize there are lots of scientists in IP field using their scientific skills and combine those skills with other set of skills. So this was a challenging task for me. So I wanted to explore those area. Also, like during the PhD, I had a chance to meet with someone from the technology transfer office from my university, and this first conversation really enlightened me and gave me this idea pursuing a career in IP.
Okay. Aishwarya?
For me, I also really enjoyed research. But at one point of time, I started feeling that a lot of people who continue being in academia, they end up doing a lot of projects for the sake of grants. And many of these projects, which are brilliant, what happens is they stop at that particular stage and they don't see the light of day, like they don't reach the patients. And this was something that was bugging me a lot. So at that point of time, I wanted something different to do. I wanted to either work in the industry or start something up on my own. And I come from a family of entrepreneurs. But the moment where I decided that I want to do this was when I was visiting a friend of mine who is also a PhD from NUS. And she mentioned that there are these talent accelerator programs. Why don't you give it a shot? And I went there and I came across several people like Entrepreneur First in Singapore. 50% of their cohort has PhDs. So there are a lot of people who have their PhDs who want to do this. So I started talking to a few more people and I saw that there was a lot of opportunity outside academia in the industry and in owning your own business also. So then I decided to take the leap of faith and I joined the first cohort in Singapore. And then I wanted to move back to India. So I did another cohort with them in Bangalore and then started my company.
Ivan?
Okay, so I need to give you a background first. So basically, as I mentioned just now, I was a high school teacher. So basically, teachers in Singapore are actually public servants. So the general idea is that most people will be asking me, since you had a public service job, why do you actually want to go back to research? So as per what the other two panelists have mentioned, I personally love research a lot as well. But of course, on the other hand, I also love to teach because I love the interactions between the students and myself. However, one reason why I decided to come back to NUS to do my PhD is because I realized that even though we are trying to bring knowledge to students, there's actually that disconnect or the gap whereby students themselves would actually prefer a bit of industrial information. They want to know what's the most relevant, what's the greatest relevance in terms of scientific findings. And those are kind of missing because the textbooks we have are usually very old information that is being founded like decades ago. So for myself, I told myself perhaps going back to do a PhD, it would be a good time for me to do some upgrading, equip myself with some skills, at the same time gain some knowledge and gain some experience and gain some connections as well. So that in future, let's say if I go back to teaching, if my students require any forms of like internships or whatsoever, that's where my connections will come to good use.
So if I have to summarize this, no matter how much we love research, we have to choose the passion or something which we are good into that, and we need to keep ourselves upgraded. I believe in the same stuff. So that is a very nice insight. I hope we really not stick to the passion or the research. Oh, I love research, so I should stay, but we should look for the other options where we can be a better fit. So that's a very good insight from you guys. So next question. Being coming from an academia, and you guys also did a research, being a PhD student, for us in academia, what motivates us, to get a publication so I can get tenured? So these are the things, this is very much prevalent in academia. So, but when you work in a company or as a patent officer and as a tutor, okay, what drives your day-to-day work and how different are the goals that we set ourselves in academia compared to you guys set for your company or maybe as a patent scientist? So maybe we can start with Ivan.
Okay, so I think as I just mentioned, my interactions will be mostly with the students. And of course, not just students, even my colleagues who are teachers as well, when we are trying to, the mingling that we have, we usually come up with pedagogies or teaching methodologies that we feel that will be the best in terms of teaching and learning for the students. And I would say that the interactions we have, of course, in the lab setting, we do have interactions as well. We can actually discuss about science, from lab to lab. We can meet for tea and talk about science. But what I realize is that as we go on for years, if we end up having more and more tea sessions, the talks, that's basically my own personal experience. So when it comes to me and my students, we talk about anything under the sun. We talk about the BTS, Korean band. We talk about what this teacher is wearing and stuff. And then the best thing about it is when I talk to the teachers, we talk more about how we can actually help the students to appreciate science. So I think we have come to a point whereby science, to most students, science is just a subject they have to take in school. And I do personally have a few students whereby they do not love science because they felt that it was just being force-fed. It was forcefully being fed to them. So that's the reason why I thought, as an educator, if I can actually inspire a student to explore science, they do not have to do science as a career, but if they have as long as they have that keenness to actually explore science, I feel I would have succeeded.
Aishwarya?
For me, there are two things. One is in academia, we know that papers, we will get it in a particular period of time. Here, these are more long-term goals. The first thing is the growth of the company. So every time we get a new grant or some new funding, we know that more and more people believe in our company, they believe in our product. So this keeps us going. This keeps us working harder. That is one thing. The other thing that keeps us going is when I think about it, when I think about my product, I know that maybe a few months to a few years down the line, depending on how things work out, somebody will be benefiting and people are going to use it. So the feeling that it's going to benefit a lot of people, people are going to use it. I might see it in the shelves of medical device shops and pharmacies. All that is what keeps me going.
Okay, Leif?
Yeah, actually, mine is a little bit different because what drives my daily work is to client satisfaction. So what I mean that I'm working with many companies and I'm helping the companies to protect their inventions, and the companies are my clients. So at the end of the day, a mistake that I made, or if I miss any due date, it can cost them like $1 million. So this is really important. This is why my daily routine is based on client company satisfaction. But there are also, like in this path, there are also goals that you set for yourself. So if you keep going during the day, you learn a lot in IP field. But also there are some opportunities to grow and to thrive in. For example, right now I'm a patent scientist. I can give scientific advices to the companies. However, I cannot represent a company to the US Patent and Trademark Office. In order to do this, you need to take an exam, you need to take a course, and you need to be patent agent. So there is one way. So this keeps me motivated. So I need to learn every day while I'm working so that I can take the exam and I can pass and I can be a patent agent and represent a client. Another option that the firms here support the employers to go to law school and be a patent attorney. This is financed by your firm, and you can work at the same time. You can go to school and become a patent attorney. This is also keeps me motivated in future. For example, definitely I want to go to law school. This is why you need to keep the clients happy, and your boss should be happy with you. They can support you so that you can thrive in. Because law schools here is not very cheap; they're expensive.
That's true.
But you can gain new titles, so you can be JD, PhD, which is very valued in US. I can say that.
Okay, that's good to know. So the long term and the short term goal is something which keeps you guys motivated. And in Ivan's case, it is like he really want to change the stuff. And being an educator, and thanks to, because of the good educators, we are here doing a PhD. I never thought of coming to United States, but I had a good teacher like Ivan who really inspired me, and I take a PhD being a dentist. So that is what something I think keeps going for all of us. So that's very nice of you guys to share what you have guys are doing day-to-day life. And for Aishwarya, I wish all the best so we all can see her product on the shelf one day. So,
Exactly.
so one more thing, this always bothers me in academia. We always have this trend, if I don't get tenured. So that is the fear sometime for me to enter into the academia, whether in 5 years I will get tenured or not. So what were your fears and the reservation about pursuing your career outside academia? And looking back, how do you see them now? So maybe we can start with Alif.
Yes, actually, before step out to outside academia, I thought that if I fail in industry or in the other field, I cannot go back to academia again. And also, I was afraid that uh, if I choose a career path that is not a good fit for me, then at a certain age, because after PhD you become a certain age, it will be really difficult to change your field again. So this was my fear. But then I see that actually a lot of people, no matter what age they are changing their field. The most important thing is that every experience is valuable here. So I think now I look back and I think that I shouldn't fear any of the things. I really recommend that they just need to explore and take some risks.
Ivan?
I think Elif has actually mentioned she has mentioned something that actually made me very fearful, and that is the age factor. Because after undergrad, working for so many years, going back to PhD, I believe in my PhD cohort, I'm one of the oldest. So when I actually walk around and spoke with the postdocs in my institute, a lot of them told me that there is this unspoken golden age, whereby they say that if you pass a certain age, you most likely you shouldn't be able to get any tenure or any positions or any faculty positions. So that was the immediate fear I had, whereby I thought, oh, looks like I came in the wrong time and I may only have like a couple of years. Then I realized that after when I start to reevaluate my life, I realized that, hey, actually I have another passion to look back to, and that is teaching. And I actually spoke to many professors as well in NUS, and a lot of them actually encouraged me. They told me to look outside of academia, but they told me that the doors to academia were not closed because, example, in NUS, we have different faculty positions such as adjunct professorships, or we have professors in practice. Let's say let's say I become a professional in a particular field, I can always come back to do some teaching in one capacity or another. So actually, at the end of the day, when I think about it, I realized that there's a lot of fear because everyone around me was actually talking about, everyone around me was just talking about getting that tenure or getting that faculty position. But in a matter of fact, I realized that fear is actually something that all the students, we ourselves actually build up within ourselves, because we saw certain things and we thought that is going to be our life. As what Elif has mentioned, we should take the risk. We should be open to all sorts of experiences.
That's good. Like Aishwarya, you are a founder of a company, and how you live day-to-day life. What's the fear for you?
For me, when I was doing my PhD, the same fear that everybody else had, that I might not get a postdoc, that I might not get tenure, was there. But when I also was starting the company, I also had the fear that if I initially wanted to spend maybe about 2 years in this company, if things could continue, otherwise think of either shifting to academia or teaching. And then I also had this thing like, what if 2 years I spend on something entirely new, and then everything changes, and by then I'm not able to get back into academia. I won't have any publications in these 2 years and things like that. But like they said, I spoke to several people, and in Entrepreneur First, there was in Bangalore also, there were a lot of PhDs from Singapore and other places in India. And they all told me that, see, it's not a dead end. Whatever experience that you're getting in forming this company, all the skills that you're learning, both technical and otherwise, will come into use some other time. So just take the plunge. And if things don't work out, you can go back to academia or teaching, or you can start another company. So don't worry about that. So that was what motivated me and kept me made me work harder for this.
That's exactly I think we all should believe. We should take a faith of, we should move forward rather than thinking what's going to happen. Risk is something we should take. Otherwise, I think we all have taken risks in our life, and I'm very happy you guys are successful and making things work out for yourself. So that's the only advice same we can give to the viewers. Like, take a risk. It's always a comeback. It is not a dead end. Being in academia, if I might not get continued, but my skills can be put for a good use into maybe a company, maybe as a scientific advisor. So that is something, and maybe an educator, as we have been teaching and doing those things will really help. So as in academia, and we enjoy doing research, always pipetting, guiding students, and things like that. What do you enjoy working most? And what is the difference between the academia, as you all guys coming from the lab? So what's the big difference you guys see and what you enjoy most? So maybe we can start with Aishwarya.
What I enjoy most is the excitement of doing this. Every time we need funding, we need to start applying a few months in advance to several venture capital firms, angel investors, and things like that. We always need to constantly be on our toes. And that is something that I find really exciting. But at heart, I'm always a researcher, and my product is very research intensive. We still have a lot of experiments to run. We do a lot of experiments like on a weekly basis. Right now, because of the pandemic, we've not been able to do it. But on a weekly basis, at least thrice a week, we have experiments running. So that gives me the feel of being in the lab, doing research that I enjoy. So the combination of being on my toes with the business and doing research that I like is paramount.
Dr. Alif?
For me, you need to interact. So here you need to interact with more people with different backgrounds, because I'm working with different companies in different fields, and you are meeting with the scientists from different backgrounds. At the same time, you are learning different technologies from different fields. So this made me really excited, because during my PhD, I was really focused on my project. So you only know the details about your project, but now you have to understand and know the details about the other projects and what is going on in the world, and what's going on in the products you are using, actually, on the drugs you are taking. So it's really exciting. And also, I started to gain new set of skills in both business and law, on top of my scientific skills. Also, this made me really excited.
Yeah.
And I like a lot.
Ivan?
So I think there's one very strong resemblance or similarity between my two passions. So I think when I'm in research, when I'm doing my PhD studies, I'm actually quite fortunate to have the opportunity to mentor individuals or groups of students. And I would say that initially I thought that mentoring them would be very similar to myself in the past teaching a class of students. Then I realized that, it's very different. So in the past, my job was just in a classroom setting, I would just teach information. I teach and they just absorb. But however, in research, we don't just teach. We have to guide. We have to mentor them properly. We have to tell them, this is not the right way, or we have to let them experience certain failures, and then from there we will teach them. We will actually guide them how to go about, circumventing this issue and not make the same mistakes again in future experiments or in analysis. So I think one thing I like a lot in research is that opportunity to do mentoring, which I didn't get to actually experience in my teaching career. But now that I think about it, looks like I have gotten the experience for both. I think in my current teaching stint, I would say that I should be able to better integrate teaching in terms of a classroom setting and in individual.
Yeah. So my next question is quite, it might be direct and hurtful for some people, but that is the hard fact reality. Somehow we graduates, we magically think, we can crack the nuts and bolts of this new professional being not a tenure track, but that's not the case. Being work in a company, it's a very different ball game compared to the tenure track. So what service and resources you use to really help you make the transition to learn being a co-founder or being a patent scientist? So how we can make this transition easy, because academia is all about publishing paper during PhD focused on research. So how we can really learn something during that time and we make this transition easy for the graduates. So maybe we can start with Alif.
Sure. So I can recommend like attending network events and like conferences organized by nonprofit organizations, like that hosts like community events and programs that brings different people from different backgrounds into one place. For example, in US there are called venture cafes. For venture cafes, for example, there are entrepreneurs generally gathering together, but also there are other organizations that bring together different people from different fields. Also, there are like online, they can search meetup groups. This is common in US. Meetup groups focusing specialized fields. They are normally like small groups and casually meet somewhere like restaurants or bars. They can go and chat with them. It's really useful, and they can, while talking with them, they will see that how they improve themselves, how they learn stuff. So I actually get benefit of this a lot.
Aishwarya.
I very strongly believe that in order to be outside academia, or sometimes even within academia, the greatest skill that anybody can have is the skill of acquiring more and more skills. So in academia, we actually need to be an expert in one particular thing, and we need to know a few other things associated with that quite well. But on the other hand, I feel in other fields, especially when you're running your own business or you're working in the industry, you literally need to be the jack of all trades. So, in case you don't want to pursue a career in academia, I feel that the first thing that you should do is identify what you want to work in. So, like the three of us here, we are not in academia, but we're in three very different fields. So, first, you need to identify which field you want to work in. And for that, I would very strongly recommend a few different things. One thing that you can do is there are a lot of these open universities and things like that, like Coursera and all that. So they have a lot of very different programs, and a lot of them are free to university students. So if you're doing your PhD, just sign up for it. Try out week 1, week 2. If you're not happy, just leave it. You know that it's not catching your attention. And apart from that, the other thing is on LinkedIn, do try to, if anything catches your attention or you're interested even remotely in a few fields, try following a few people in LinkedIn who are in that field and see what they have to say. Sometimes they endorse certain courses or certain conferences, follow them and see if it catches your attention. Network with a lot of people, that is very important. And apart from that, I'm very sure that in whichever university that you are in, you will have some seniors who have passed out before you, who've tried out different things. So in case you know anybody who's in your particular field, reach out to them on LinkedIn or something else. And usually they get very excited when they see someone from their own alma mater, they will reply to you. And the third thing is, one thing that I felt was very underutilized during my PhD was when I was in NUS. NUS had a lot of industry collaborations. But many of the PhD students were so focused on their PhD that they did not make use of this at all. So if you have these kind of collaborations, you leverage that. You can even use that to get some papers and do things like that so that it's useful for your PhD also. Just don't be too stuck and be like, okay, I'll finish my PhD, then look at other things. When you're doing your PhD itself, start looking at other things.
Definitely.
Ivan?
Yeah. So Victoria and Elif, I actually agree with both of them. So other than the networking and so on, I think another experience I had in NUS is that I actually had the opportunity to actually approach a professor because I want to try teaching at a different scale at the higher education. So I think I'm pretty sure Ashwarya actually agrees with me that NUS we don't have that opportunity whereby PhD students can do lecturing. So what I did was I was actually quite thick-skinned. I actually approached a professor and asked and demanded for a teaching position. So I was quite fortunate to actually meet up with a professor that's associated with my institution. I was his TA for his module for the first semester. he likes the way I work. So what happens is that I show him what I can do. I show him what I can contribute in terms of teaching, in terms of development of the teaching materials. And fortunately, he actually gave me the opportunity to teach, to co-lecture in his module for the next 2 semesters. And I would say that from that point of view, I look at it as a form of apprenticeship, whereby other than learning extra stuff from the open source tools and open source places, we can also try to approach certain professors who are in a particular field or in the industries already. We can actually approach them and ask them for some sort of apprenticeship, where we can actually go with them to learn a skill or two. Yes.
So that's a very good point you all guys put forward. It is very important networking, but the way to networking is very important. It is not only through a conference, it can be through a bar, it can be through a LinkedIn. There are courses which Aishwarya mentioned, like Coursera. Even during my PhD, I tried courses. Even like being a dentist, you can try a machine learning course, and you will get to know nowadays everybody they are trying to bring artificial intelligence, whether it is in engineering and bio. So you don't know sometimes what we have the skill set. So doing this free online courses and being a PhD, we should not focus on only looking at, oh, I should finish my paper. We should start looking for the stuff which we are interested. So students should really think of what they really want at this time. So my next question is exactly on that point. The right career options is very important, as you guys have made a good career choice, and it's very important for the satisfaction. And I hope you guys all are satisfied what you guys are doing currently. But when did you actually started planning a non-academic career? And how much time do you recommend we should put on a weekly basis, as we have to do research, we have to publish paper, we have to mentor students. So many things in a PhD we do. We have to go to the other labs to learn another skill set. So when did you guys started planning to this non-academic career, and how you focused? So we can start with Ivan.
So I think for myself, it's a bit ad hoc. So I have heard from many seniors who told me things like, 1 year before you graduate, 2 years before you graduate. Some of them were saying things like, the moment you start PhD, you should start thinking about what you want to work. The moment you graduate from your PhD. So I have all this information. What happens is that I just focus on my research. I just focus on my PhD. But the main thing is that I will continuously get engaged in conversations with people within the field, outside of the field. At the same time, well, I don't have the opportunity to drink with my friends outside, but I will actually meet them out for a meal or two. And from there, I actually try to learn as much as possible what is the current trends in different fields, banking and finance or whatsoever. So the thing is that a lot of people thought that, if we are doing science research, we should only mix with people from science. For myself, I mix with people from everywhere, actually. So from there, I kind of get a bit of information here and there. From there, I get a sense of where I want to land myself in. And of course, approximately about a year before my graduation, I realized that, well, teaching is still my cup of tea, and I really miss those interactions. And that's why from then onwards, I started to go back to a bit of, I invest about maybe a couple of hours per week to read up a bit more about education research, so that I can better prep myself after my PhD. I can continue to engage in this teaching stint. Yes.
Aishwarya?
For me, when I joined my PhD itself, I did not even think about, doing a postdoc and getting tenure and things like that. When I joined the PhD, I just joined the PhD because I wanted to do a PhD. There was nothing else after the PhD. It was like, I need a PhD, I want it, and that's about it. So initially, when I joined the PhD, my plan was to finish the PhD and then come back to India and start teaching. But through the course of the PhD, seeing my peers, I started thinking like, hey, maybe every PhD should do a postdoc and get into academia. Maybe I'm wrong for thinking this way. But towards the end of my PhD, I had dabbed with a few other things. Like I tried a little bit of technical content writing. And I did enjoy it, yes, but I knew that that was not where my calling lay. And I did come across a few others from NUS and who were, trying their hands at their own businesses and things like that, which was when a spark came. I was actually in a friend's son's birthday party, and two PhD students were discussing about what they plan to do with their startups. And I was like, hey, why can't I start my own company? I have all these ideas. Why should I wait for somebody else to start it? So that was when the idea came. So for me, except for a very short while during my PhD, I never thought about academia. I've always only been thinking about other alternate careers. But the idea to start my own company came towards like the last 6 months of my PhD.
Okay, Ali?
Actually, I'm the quite opposite of Ashwarya, because when I started PhD, I was targeting being a professor. However, in the second course of PhD, my mind is completely changed depending on my results as well. Also, like all the things that I observe, which I thought that it's not going to be a good fit for me. But unfortunately, this is why I didn't begin to search in advance. So I definitely recommend that I cannot give like a time allocation per week or per day, but it should be definitely in advance, because in the last year you are wrapping up your experiments and writing thesis, you don't have any time. Here, for example, what I see in Europe, it wasn't common, but in US, for example, it's common that people are doing their PhD with the permission from their professors, they can do some internship. So you can do like small internships with the companies that you're interested in. As Nilesh said, and Ashwarya and both Ivan said, you can take some courses during your PhD, and you can reach out people. This shouldn't be, I mean, time-wise, like 2 hours per day, but it should be continuous effort. So you shouldn't wait until last minute.
Yeah, that's so nice. Actually, I will again put some limited point. As Ivan mentioned, it is very important to be aware of the current affairs. So it's not only about we ask about the research, because having a knowledge about a share market, what company or what reagent or what technology is coming up, and we have the skill sets during our PhD, and it is very important. So even if we are attending a birthday party, we should keep our ears open, just not enjoying the cake, but it is important to keep open to ourselves for a conversation. So that can help us get and help us decide actually what career path we want to choose as we enter into academia. Even for me, it was like I want to just do maybe a company, but later on I decided to come in towards, now I'm lean more towards joining as a tenure track professor. But when I started a PhD, I wanted a skill set so that I can use that in industry, because before joining PhD, I was working in a company. And that's how I realized, okay, I should do a PhD. But when I came into a PhD, I'm now more leans towards joining as a tenure track because I enjoy teaching, doing research and things like that. So we have to keep the conversation open and keep our minds open just to think, okay, what should be the next step, not just be thinking blindly, okay, everybody's doing a postdoc, so I should follow a postdoc. So that's very good insight from you guys. And then the next question is like, as PhD is quite wide, okay, for some people it takes 60 years. 7 years in the United States. I know people, they take 10 years also. I know people, they have taken some people here 10 years. What relevant skills actually help you during your graduate studies to decide you to be a co-founder of a company or a patent, and for the Ivan being an educator? So maybe we can start with Dr. Ali.
Yeah, I mean, of course, sure. I mean, during your PhD, you gain analytical thinking and lateral thinking skills. This definitely helps you during your job, and you see that you get the appreciation from your colleagues, your boss, and your clients, and whoever you are working with. This is definitely important. Also, personally for myself, I have been involved in different projects that lies at the intersection of life sciences, material science, and chemistry, which provides me a diverse background. And for example, for being a patent scientist, this having a diverse background is very important because each technology is composed of from different parts. So you need to understand every bit of it. So this helped me a lot. But other than that, nothing, because you need to gain new set of skills as we talked all together.
Ashwarya?
One of the skills which I learned during PhD was if something goes wrong, you have to try out the same thing in 100 different ways to make it work. And that thing in the company, I realized that if something goes wrong, for plan A, you don't need to have 100 solutions. You have to have a plan A, B, C, D, E. Like for hundreds of plans, you need to have hundreds of solutions. And the idea that you need to keep thinking continuously, innovating continuously, came from the PhD. The analytical skills which I got during the PhD were exceptionally useful in helping me shape my thought process for the company. Apart from that, the research skills which I used and what I need now are an entirely different ballgame altogether. But one thing that I learned during the PhD was networking. And although I am not using it for getting into academia, it still helps me now.
Ivan?
So I think for myself, the PhD training itself, other than networking, for myself, I actually learned one good thing, and that is resilience. And I use the word resilience because, as what Ashwara has mentioned, many experiments will fail, and we can choose two ways. Either we become depressed and just give up, or we can just bite the bullet and just soldier on and just try our best to solve the issue that we are being given. So that is, to me, that is an experience and a skill that you can't get from textbook, and you can't get it from anywhere else. I mean, for myself, when I was a teacher, as a public servant, we are not allowed to have any mistakes made, because when you're working, right, you make a mistake, your boss will actually grill you down. But I think when we go back, when we are doing our PhD studies, what I feel is that we are given that avenue, that place to actually fail, pick up, analyze where we went wrong, and then from there we try to improve ourselves, so that in future when you have similar situations, you know how to be very flexible, such that you know how to actually instantaneously be able to come up with a solution. So I guess what I learned, one thing I learned other than being resilient, is that now if you throw me in any situations, I guess I am actually quite fast in terms of reacting and responding to those situations. Yes.
Okay. So that's like, so I think during doctoral training we learn a lot of things, like how to evaluate, how to organize the stuff, and that is very important in the end when we are especially writing our papers and we have these informations here and there, to analyze the information, in fact lead the discussions when we are presenting our own stuffs in a meeting, lead our discussions, put together a lecture like Ivan is doing a teaching. Some of us get an opportunity to review the paper. I'm operating academic culture. So these are the things I also believe. I'm just adding a few more points. And we as a graduate should think, this is something which we can put to a good use if we are co-founders. So how I can lead a discussion. You see the paper, similarly, you try to check the market, check the temperature, how this market is working. So we can use this graduate training skills to a very good use. So that's very nice, insightful. This question is very important, I feel, for people, even for me, like the modifications in CV, because academic culture is very different. But when it comes to industry, they are very specific to certain things. And the interview process is very different compared to the academics. So if you guys can provide some feedback, what kind of modification needs to be done on CV, and how interviews are different. As Ashwara is a co-founder, she might be seeing some CV and she wanted, okay, this person in my company, Elif being a patent scientist, applied for a job in a company being coming from a research background. So what modifications do you think we really need to do in our CVs so that we can get into this career outside academia? So we can start with Ashwarya.
The first thing that I think that we should modify in our CV is when we are in academia, we list all our papers and we put the paper which has the most citations or the most popular paper right on top. That, when it comes to industries, doesn't work, because industries don't want to know which paper of yours is most popular. They want to see which paper of yours or what research that you've done is most relevant to their vision and what they are working on. So I would strongly recommend that if you have any papers or something like that, If you have like lots of papers, don't put all of them, just put the ones which are relevant. If you have a few, then yes, do put them. If you have only one or two, yes, you do have to put them. But even when you're putting like maybe 4 or 5, highlight those papers which are of relevance to the company. And apart from that, when it comes to the skills, don't just randomly put all the skills that you've acquired, like pages and pages of skills. Tailor your resume particularly for every company. And apart from that, this is not necessarily particular only for industries. Now, a lot of the companies or American resumes which are evaluated by robos. They're very, even like if you have a small spelling mistake, the robo will not be able to understand that and it rejects your resume. So be very careful with the spellings, the formatting and all that. Ensure that whatever formatting instructions they've given, you do it to the T. Make your resume for every company, for every role that you're applying for. And if you cannot do that, at least have 2 or 3 different resumes for the different kinds of roles that you're applying for.
Actually, Aishwarya summarized this very well, so I cannot really think of something else to add. But I can say that like about tailoring, every country also have their own version of resume. For example, Germany wants a signature on the resume and the date on the resume. And for US, for example, this is different. They don't want pictures on the resume. So for some countries they want pictures, some countries don't, and they just need to check how it works from the Google. Each company, not each country they're applying. Of course, each company you are gonna tailor it again. So this is all I can say on top of what Ashura said.
Ivan, any feedback?
So I think they have both summarized almost everything. But what I can do is that I would like to share a bit for those viewers who are interested in teaching, particularly. So I think I have actually received some. I was actually approached by some postdocs in my institute as well, who are asking me about my teaching stint before I came to PhD and asked me what can they do to actually switch from academia to teaching. And when they're talking about teaching, they're talking about teaching in either a public school or an international school. So I think some things I would like to share is that perhaps for each school, for individuals who are interested in teaching in schools, number one, you may want to find out what is required in your respective countries in terms of teaching. Because, example, if I'm not wrong, in Singapore, in India, and I think even in the States, to be a full-fledged teacher, you actually have to have a license to teach. So you must go to the teacher college, very least. While some other countries, they might be a bit more relaxed. As long as you have a postgraduate diploma or postgraduate certificate in education, you are actually able to do some sort of a teaching internship in the schools first before you can actually opt to turn into a full-fledged teacher. So in that case, for the CV, what happens is that from what we have learned in PhD, it's good for us to mention specifically what skills we have acquired in our PhD training that can be translated into teaching. What are the parts of teaching and learning? So it's not just about us saying things like we are actually experts in our own field, therefore we are the best teachers. No, actually it's more about what are the soft skills that we can actually have obtained. I mean, most of us have actually done a lot of presentations and stuff. So basically, those soft skills are actually very valuable in, let's say, the field of teaching per se. Yeah.
That's very valuable insight. I think the viewers, they really need to understand if they are applying for the job, they really need to tailor their CV. They should not keep one CV for all the job. And it is very important. I will add one more thing. When people apply for the job, they look, okay, this is a molecular scientist. Oh, I'm a molecular biologist, and they shoot an email. They send their CV. So they don't tailor the CV accordingly. We really need to read what skills they want. So I can tailor my CV accordingly. And as Alif mentioned, they want signature. As Aishwarya mentioned, and nowadays the CVs are being evaluated by robots. So if they don't see the signatures, your CV is gone. That's why people come and ask, I have applied so many places, but I'm not getting the job. The thing is, like, you really need to look at the job profiles. You have to look for the country you are applying, as you guys mentioned, and look for, okay, what kind of CVs they want. And it is very important to tailor the CV rather than just shooting an email. It's not like I have a PhD or I have this soft skills, so I should get this job. It's not. Because companies are looking something for very specific. And even in the cover letter, you have to mention that. don't keep a generalized cover letter. You have to modify your cover letters accordingly. So that's nice. So we have one question from Facebook. So the viewer has mentioned this question is directed to whom, but I think this is something you all can answer. So the question I will read for you guys. The question: how are the risk factors are considered for choosing a career beyond academia? How you guys weigh your own stuff before you're deciding to go outside the academia? Any insights? Maybe we can start with Ivan.
I'm a risk taker. So just to share a bit about myself. So I actually, during my PhD, my wife actually gave birth to another 2 kids. So I have 3 kids now. So yes, so to be honest, to venture something out of academia, because the natural progression is a postdoc, that's what we have discussed. So other than taking up a stable postdoc role, whereby it's more or less available for us graduates in NUS and NT in Singapore, me going out is actually a risk, because the thing is that I may risk myself leaving myself out in the cold, waiting for a job to come by. So for myself, like I mentioned, I'm a risk taker. So basically, I don't really care much about I don't really think too much about, am I going to be jobless for a period of time? Am I going to not get, am I not going to be in this field? Am I not going to be that field? I don't really think that much. Basically, I just follow my heart. I just do what I like to do. Yes.
Any feedback from you girls?
For me, when I was finishing my PhD and thinking of starting the company, like Ivan mentioned, I was also a risk taker, and I was like, no, it's okay. I am only living for myself. So it's absolutely fine. If we can't do it, then there are still fallback options, but it's okay to risk a couple of years of my life into trying something that I really like. But now if you ask me whether I will take the same risk, I might not, because at that point of time, I was not married and I had absolutely no responsibilities whatsoever. Now there are more responsibilities and things like that. But thankfully for me, things are working out well. So because of that, I don't have to reconsider my decisions.
Liv, any feedbacks? Yeah.
I also wanted to take risks, but I think the most important question, what we can do to reduce those risks. So if we fail, for example, how can we change the field? As we mentioned earlier, after a certain age. Actually, I saw an example here at one of my colleagues. After many years spending in the field, she couldn't take the title being a patent agent, so she had to move to a different field. But how she managed is that via, again, networking. I think here is the key is networking. This is my observation. If you know people from different backgrounds, if your networking is wide, then those people knows that you are you have nice set skills, analytical thinking, lateral thinking, and you have PhD and you are capable of many things. So they will give you an opportunity based on that. This is why I think knowing more people will reduce your risks. If you fail in one field, you can switch to another.
Okay, that's so the conclusion, we should all take a risk, I think. And I think being a graduate student, we have all taken the risk to join a graduate program. So we need to continue doing that the same when we look for the job, because being a researcher, we don't know this experiment or my thesis which I have put forward is going to work. So we are known for taking a risk, and that's the one advice I think everybody can have. Risk you can take, and there is, as Aishwarya mentioned, there is always a fallback options, and it is very important to decide as we progress, we get more responsibility. So we might, instead of responsibility, that can be a more help. So that is something we all have to consider. So those are the things which we want. We have another question again from the Facebook. It's from, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing the name wrong. It's, I think, a Turkish name, Tugba. So her question is, what personality traits you think help you to decide what you are doing right now? Alif, you want to answer that question?
Actually, the IP field, you don't need to be like very extrovert person. But however, what I am doing, I'm working with early stage biotechnology companies. So you have to have a very strong interpersonal skills, and you have to be you have to you have to know how to communicate with the people, because you are dealing with different scientists. Their way of communication with you changes depending on their personalities as well. So I can say that my interpersonal skills helped me to succeed in this field up to now.
Anybody else want to add some insight into this? What personality traits you think helps you decide what you are doing right now?
I think for me, it's like we already spoke about it, resilience and persistence. So no matter how badly things go, at least until I reach my saturation point, I have to persist. And my saturation point is very, very high. So I'm not going to reach it very fast. So because of that, I think that's one of the personality traits that has helped me a lot.
Ivan, you want to add something?
Yeah, so I think for those who are planning to do teaching, you don't necessarily have to love kids or children or young adults, but you all must have. But for the future teachers to be, you need to have a lot of patience. You have a couple of students who want to drive you to your grave very soon. You need to be you need to have very good interpersonal skills, because the thing is that every individual students are different, are unique. So therefore, the way we approach each of them will be very different as well. So for that itself, we had to be also very open to different ideas of how we want to resolve certain things. So most of the problems that I face in teaching is not about teaching and learning. Most of the time, it's about interpersonal relationships between students and teachers, students and the institution. Yes.
Okay. So I have one more question. Actually, it's not on Facebook. My friend, he WhatsApped me. So this is a question he in your journey, you may have seen failure stories as well as wherein changing career didn't help. So not directly from you, you might have progress now. You might have seen with your work experience people around you, they have changed the career and it didn't work for him. So how do you think one could prepare one for that?
Can I? Okay, sorry.
Sorry, I thought that I already mentioned about this. Like, is it about like reducing the risk that we are taking? So I can say, like, again, like networking is important and to be prepared for these risks.
So you have to have a back for this fallbacks. So networking, so if something happens, so you have people within your friend circle and things like that who can really help you get as we know each other. Okay, that's nice. Any other question? Any other insights from you guys?
I think as you're doing something else itself, in the case you're doing very well and the coast is clear, absolutely fine. But I'm very sure you will have an inkling if things are not going too well, or if there is going to be a little bit of a rough patch and things like that. Like, for instance, when in my company, I felt that we were going to have a little bit of a rough patch, which was like more than a year back. I also took to content writing on the side. The first thing was it kept some income coming in. The second thing was when I was doing content writing, I was abreast of what is happening. So I was reading about what is happening and things like that. I was more informed. And the third thing was because I was freelancing, I was talking to a lot of people. And that comes back to Elif's point. It helped me network. So when you feel that something is going wrong, I'm very sure you will have some sort of a feeling. It won't very rarely will it just come on your face and be like, okay, you failed. You will have an inkling. So when you have that inkling, I think you should start networking or doing something to mitigate the damage.
Yeah.
When you have to add something?
Actually, I feel that the networking is not just about finding something to lie back on just in case things happen. I think networking also allows us to interact with others and learn from other people's mistakes. So as what the question you have posed, what if you have seen failure stories? So one thing we can do is we can talk to others who may have kind of failed in their ventures. We can ask them what have gone wrong, and they might, if they are willing to, they can share with us, and from there we can actually learn it. We can actually use it as a learning journey for ourselves. And along the way, we can try to accept whatever learning points that they gave us, and from there we can actually apply it to our own situations as well. So for myself, I see that again, as what all of us has mentioned, the networking is actually relatively important.
Okay. So I think we are right on time. Thank you very much, guys, for your awesome feedback. It was really helpful even for me to decide how I should, now in my postdoc career, should I go through the tenure track? I think this is really making me think, what I should do. And is there anything else you guys want to add? Something to that which we have missed during these things, or for the people, so that they can get more information and they can think of deciding their career? Anything anybody wants to add into this?
I can maybe give maybe most of the people knows a website that I used before, cheekyscientist.com. So there are some career trainings, webinars, and success stories. So they can have a look at that website. It's quite informative for the people who is looking at careers outside academia.
Anything else from you guys? I think later on, I want people to come to the Cranium Club, okay, and look for a success story from you guys and decide. And I hope, after this discussion, people will get in touch if they have certain questions. We will definitely redirect to those questions to you guys. And thank you very much again for this wonderful discussion.
Sure. Thanks, Nilesh, for invitation. Thank you all.
Thank you.